Okay, so in my previous video, I talked about Safi's different behavior between the gun photo and the owl photo. I tried to present my opinion that Safi in the gun photo seems totally careless and maybe even evil, while Safi in the owl photo seems scared, terrified, and ready to sacrifice herself to save the others. I also tried to tell a few theories why she could be like that, and even though I wanted to make it as a discussion video, sadly, it didn't have that effect, at least not for now. Now, it's time to move on and talk about today's topic. As I promised you, this video will be about the original timeline, and I will be trying to analyze how all the events could have happened there. For this video, I will assume that my theory about the Polaroids mystery from the first video is correct, so if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out first. I will leave the link down in the video description. During the game, you can collect total amount of 20 Polaroids all around the locations. It is not officially confirmed yet whether these Polaroids mean anything at all, or if they are just a silly collectible. As you saw in my first video, my theory is that all Polaroids actually show how the events happen in the original timeline. There are going to be exceptions of course, but we'll talk about them later. So, let's try to analyze each Polaroid and explain how the events could have happened in the original timeline. And again, I have to warn you that I will be theorizing a lot, so there's no guarantee that I will be right. Maybe you will find out in the sequel that I'm actually totally wrong. I'm not going to show you location of every Polaroid, as this is not a trophy guide video. I will make an exception only with the first 3 Polaroids, and you'll find out why very soon. Alright, let's begin with the first Polaroid. It can be found in the snapping turtle, after the bowling alley scene. After you talk with Safi about Chloe, and she sends you to talk with Amanda, you can turn left and walk until you arrive near the terrace door. The Polaroid is on its left.
Ah, undergrads.
In this photo, we can see Diamond and Reggie drinking in the turtle. There doesn't seem to be much difference from this world yet. The second Polaroid can be still found while Safi is alive, after Max leaves the roof and decides to go home. When she puts on her headphones, you can walk to the statue where you can take the owl photo, but instead of moving right to the statue, continue moving forward. You can then see the second Polaroid on the ground.
Another Polaroid? Nice. But who planted the bottle cap? And who took the photo?
This Polaroid shows us a snowman, which, for some reason, wasn't damaged. And it also has a bottle cap for an eye. The bottle cap that Max gave Safi on the roof.
Shit. It's a conspiracy.
But there's just one tiny little problem, and some of you may already know what I mean. So, as we all know, the timeline split when Max shoots Safi.
Shit!
But even though this is happening during December 4th, Safi is still alive, and we cannot travel between the timelines yet. So, what the hell is going on? How can we find Polaroids from the original timeline if we still are in the original timeline? Well, let's theorize about it. My friend noticed in his first playthrough something I've overlooked. So let's go back to the beginning of the game. The first scene takes place in the abandoned bowling alley. Max breaks in, and Safi is keeping her company during this whole scene. There's nothing unusual happening until we make it to the first choice in this conversation. As you can see, the Dead World symbol appears in this choice. I firstly thought that this is just a bug and that developers only forgot to remove this symbol, but there might be actually something to it. The timelines might not have been split yet, but it doesn't mean that they're not starting to split already, and without them being completely split yet, Max cannot travel between them. But why do I think that something might be already happening to the original timeline? Well, let's come back to the roof scene. When Safi leaves, she tells Max and Moses to wait for her, that she'll be back in a moment. We know that she didn't come back, but what if the events in this scene didn't originally happen the way we saw them? At least not since this happened.
Right.
What if I was wrong about the moon photo headache and the bridge headache after exposing Lucas being connected? What if these two headaches are not related at all? Now, you may think, but wait, in your first video, you said that the effects of Safi losing control of her powers didn't travel only between worlds, but also between times.
You lied to me! You lied to me! You lied to me! You lied to me!
First of all, I didn't lie. It was all just a theory. And this doesn't mean that it's all wrong. Let's adjust this theory a little. So, Max's headache on the bridge was probably caused by Safi's power trying to get inside her head as well. But it seems that Max is immune from being unintentionally controlled by Safi, even if some part of Safi is in her head, which then has to be removed by taking a Polaroid selfie. It doesn't control her, and so Max doesn't repeat everything Safi is yelling at Yasmin. Okay, so we disconnected these two headaches from each other. In the comments of my first video, we agreed that it would make much more sense if the moon photo headache was actually caused by some future Max's consciousness taking over control of our Max. Remember when Safi said this?
Be right back.
Well, Max didn't show any intention to leave so soon. And suddenly, when she takes the moon photo...
Are you okay?
Yeah, all good. Just dizzy. Maybe the champagne. I think I'm gonna take off, get some rest.
I can give you a ride if you wait a few minutes.
No, that's okay. I think a walk will clear my head. Think so.
She just storms out, not waiting for Safi, refusing Moses' offer to take her home. She just wants to get out of there as fast as possible. So it seems that some future Max decided to change events and leave early for some unknown reason. As for the bowling alley Dead World symbol and the conversation, it's still possible that something else happened even before the scene. We don't know if future Max didn't come back through another photo and change some events even before Max and Safi came to the bowling alley. Now let's look at both Polaroids again with this in mind. In the Diamond and Reggie Polaroid, nothing much was different. They were both drinking and having fun. The second Polaroid, however, is now way more interesting. It seems that in the original timeline, Max didn't leave early. She probably waited for Moses and left with him. This can be hinted by Snowman having a bottle cap for his eye. As we found out in chapter 3, Safi slipped this bottle cap back to Moses somehow. So when he and Max came out of the building, they probably saw the snowman, fixed him, and put the bottle cap in the place of his eye. We don't know whether they went to find Safi to the Overlook, or if they met her outside of building, or if they met her again at all that night. All three scenarios are possible. The last Polaroid in this chapter can be found at Max's house, downstairs, near the window.
Looks like one of the previous artists in residence was also a fan of Nebb. Or a Nebb hater like Safi.
And this Polaroid makes me actually wonder about something. We know that all Polaroids appear approximately on time when those events originally happened, and on places where they happened. But after Safi died, Max probably wasn't in the mood to explore random places in her house. So it is possible that this Polaroid has been lying near the window for a few days. That would mean that at least Max met Safi again on December 4th, after Safi got the call from the publisher. Or maybe it really is a photo from December 6th. It seems that Safi came to Max to talk about the cancelled book deal. We can see used tissues, so she probably cried a lot. And also, a torn Nebb can be a sign that she was angry and torn him during her anger. We can see horror movies on the photo as well, so maybe Safi and Max watched them, trying not to think about the cancelled book deal. The fun fact is that for these 3 Polaroids, there are also alternate comments from Max. I'm not sure since when they appear, but if you are at the end of the game, they are available for sure. Let's hear them.
I hope alternate Max wasn't too hard on them. I guess I'm the one who took the photo. I wonder if that bottle cap hiding spot worked for alternate Max. Turns out that's my Nebb. Poor guy. Who broke him?
These comments don't give us much info. Max just acknowledges that these Polaroids were also taken by her alternate self. Alright, time for the first Polaroid in Chapter 2. This one can be found in the Snapping Turtle.
No, Tony, I love it. I do. It's as thoughtful as ever. No buts. Only, I know you. If you sent me a gift, it means you won't be coming this year either. Krampus isn't unsettling, it's fun. But honestly, I wanted you to finally meet Safi and Max. You love them. Right. Next year for sure. And thank you again for the gift, Tony. I mean it. Love you back, babe.
Here we can see that Moses received a Christmas gift from his boyfriend, which makes him kinda sad, because he was hoping to see him and introduce him to Max and Safi. So, in this timeline, Moses is having, well, definitely more natural problems than the time vortex. The second Polaroid can be found on Kampus, and it is actually the first one where Max realizes that she is the one taking these photos, thanks to her handwriting.
Score! Diamond a gazillion points, Reggie 0.
I thought we said no more ambushes.
Stop whining, you're fine.
As we can see, Diamond and Reggie are enjoying a snowball fight. So, the life on Hellerton seems to be normal, at least for now. We can actually see a similar scene when Max finds out about her new powers and is able to see into the living world for the first time. The third Polaroid can be found on the Overlook near Gwen.
Jesus, fuck! You've got to be kidding me.
Do you think it was a student who didn't like their final grade?
I doubt it. Usually those kinds tip me off with an angry, poorly written email.
So, do you know who did do this?
No.
Here we can see that someone slashed tires on Gwen's motorbike. In my opinion, it was Safi as a revenge, after finding out about Gwen being the one who caused that her book was cancelled. The question is, was Max there when Safi did this or not? As we can hear on the photo sound. It seems that she was there, but this could be just for the effect, so this is just my theory. I know that something about this Safi's revenge feels off, but don't worry, I will come back to it later. The fourth Polaroid is located in Moses' office when you're trying to retrieve Safi's camera.
What? Bitch, you did not just... Relax. It was a picture of the mugs you two were drinking out of.
Good. Ugh, I would rather murder all my students with my bare hands than grade one more final.
Oh no. Were you two up all night?
Yeah. And I'll be working on these astronomy finals until sundown.
And again, this Polaroid shows us that Safi and Moses are mostly facing their usual problems during finals. The fifth and final Polaroid in this chapter can be found in Max's house when she and Moses come back to take a look at photos in Safi's camera.
Oh my god, Max, how many of these movies are there?
It's a horror franchise, Safi. They don't get good until at least the third one.
The real horror is that they found a way to make 3 of these.
5, actually.
So, is this the one where they finally explain how he's still walking around with no head, or...
So, after a long shift of grading finals, Safi and Moses, together with Max, enjoy a well-deserved reward by spending a horror movie night together. Not the kind of movies I would choose, but yeah, they have their preferences. Okay, now let's take a look at Polaroids in Chapter 3. The first one can be found in the coffee shop in the Fine Arts building.
Then boom! The spaceship crashes right in the middle of a park and this alien crawls out of the hatch.
That seems like a lot of money for a student project.
I'm only gonna shoot the trailer. I figure I can cut costs doing some old school practical effects.
Seems like you got a plan. Still very ambitious.
Go big or go home, right?
As we could hear, Diamond is explaining to Max her plans about her new project. She's dealing with basic student stuff. The second Polaroid can be found in Vin's office.
The hedgehog, distant relative of the shrew, enjoys its rest after a full day's work for the kahuna.
Just don't break it?
I could just get you a new one. It cost me like $2.
I don't want a new one. I want the one you gave me.
So, after slashing Gwen's tires, having to grade all the finals, and enjoying a horror movie night with Max and Moses, Safi is also having fun with Vin. Which is interesting when we realize how Safi didn't care about him at all in the living world, and noticed him only when she needed his help. Even while stuck in the time vortex, Vin admits that
No. You're right. She doesn't. She was in my head back there, and she doesn't think about me at all. Two Safis in two universes, and neither of them cared if I live or die.
So, it's nice to see that in the original timeline, Safi is probably willing to communicate normally with Vin, and even have fun with him. And now, for the Polaroid number 3. This one can be found in Lucas's office.
How'd they get in here? Jesus, some of these items are priceless. I've got a lot on my plate. I don't need this right now. Where the hell's Yasmin? Where's security?
So, on this Polaroid, we can see Lucas's trashed office. This is again probably a work of Safi. We can also see Lucas's typewriter on the floor. The typewriter where Max found Maya Okada's manuscript, which Lucas plagiarized from her. Also, we have to ask ourselves again whether Max was there with Safi as well, or if she came there after Safi. When we listen to the beginning of the Polaroid sound, we can hear the sound of trashing Lucas's office. So it's again possible that Max was there from the beginning, but we cannot rule out the possibility that the trashing sound was only for the effect. Okay, and now let's take a small break from looking at new Polaroids, and let's stop here for a moment to talk about two of them. So I promise you to come back to Gwen Steyer's Polaroid later, and now's the right time. Let's look at these two Polaroids again and compare it with what happened in the living world. In Polaroids we can see that Safi slashed Gwen Steyer's and also trashed Lucas's office. But in the living world, that's not how these events happened. In this alternate universe, Safi used her shapeshifting powers to frame Gwen for selling drugs, and she also shapeshifted into Lucas to tell lies to his little son. And this is really interesting. It seems that for some reason, Safi in the original timeline is more hesitating about using her powers comparing to the living world Safi. And there, she shapeshifts into other people as well, like Amanda or Vin. But in the original timeline, we don't see any of these cases. Probably the only time when she shapeshifts into someone else is on the Overlook, when she loses control of her powers. But why? Why is Safi not using her powers in the original timeline, but in the living world she does so without any problems? Well, we can't tell for sure. We only have small pieces of what happened there, but we can still theorize about it. As I mentioned in my first video, there are a few factors why the original timeline is different from the living world. The first reason is that Max was absent from the living world for 2 days after Safi's book deal was cancelled. From the Polaroid we know that sooner or later Safi comes to Max. She's angry and tears Nebb. She cries and they watch horror movies together. She may then tell Max about her wanting to get revenge against Gwen and Lucas. She may tell her that she wants to hurt them a lot. Max probably doesn't know about Safi's shape-shifting powers yet, so she probably talks her out of it, or at least convinces her to not do something drastic. That might lead to Safi not being so vengeful and commit only smaller crimes like slashing tires or trashing office. But in the living world, when Safi comes to Max after learning that her book deal was cancelled, Max is not home. She may think that Max is also one of the people responsible for the deal being cancelled. Well, she may not think it directly, but she can be at least suspicious. So Max is not there for her. She probably goes to Moses and talks to him, but with her other best friend being absent, there's probably nobody to talk her out of her justice tour. That means she takes everything into her own hands and shapeshifts into Gwen and Lucas. The good question is whether she did it before Max from the dead world arrived or after, but judging by the fact that we find out about these events already in chapter 2, it seems that Safi used her powers before Max arrived. And now to remind us of the second factor why those worlds are different. As I said, Max traveled into the living world on December 8th. That's 2 days after Safi's book deal was cancelled. But this Max has the knowledge that something might happen to Safi. She's snooping around, asking people things about Safi, and later also about Maya. It doesn't take long for Safi to notice this, and then she also suspects Max of being a part of it too. That's why she breaks into Max's house to search for some clues. And she, kinda finds some clues? Okay, we know she does. But while we're talking about this, let me show you something that is probably a bug. Now, I reported this to Square Enix support more than 2 months ago, but by the time I'm working on this video, it's still there, so let's look at this bug. So, after Max catches the other Max, which later turns out to be shapeshifted Safi, they have kind of a confrontation, and Safi says this.
All that stuff in your dark room? About Lucas? About Vin? About Gwen? Shit you have no reason to know about or care about.
So that means that Safi saw all those materials in Max's dark room. But when we look into the scene where Max comes to her dark room after Safi broke in, Safi is actually looking at almost empty desk. If we don't go to the dark room right away, but rather travel into the dead world, we can see that all those materials are there. And in chapter 4, Max mentions that she moved those materials into the living world to hide them from Alderman, who was already erased. But she didn't think that she would have to hide them from Safi as well. That's why I think that this is just a bug, and they forgot to move this box into the living world. Anyway, I believe that I've summed up well enough why Safi might be not using her powers in the original timeline. But remember, it is all just a theory. We can later find out that it wasn't correct. Alright, back to the Polaroids analysis. So, later in the Snapping Turtle, we can find a 4th Polaroid.
You know, I'll admit, I don't really see too many live performances.
And we're going to correct that immediately. If you want to get to know me, music is a surefire way to do that.
Oh, well, in that case, I'll bring a notebook. Take notes.
Excellent, write this down. Does comedy, enjoys live music, super cute, that last one's important.
I feel like you've done this before. What's in the Max journal?
Hot's definitely there. And mysterious. Hoping you can help me fill it out a little more.
Here we can see that the Acid Pink Band has its concert in the Turtle. Max seems to be dating Amanda, and they are having a great time together. But this concert is kinda strange, to be honest. We know that these Polaroids appear approximately around the time when they were taken in the original timeline, but in the living world, at least I couldn't spot any sign of Acid Pink having concert there. Maybe it happened during these 2 days when Max was absent. I'm not sure, but please, If anyone saw any other asset ping info in the game, make sure to write it down in the comment section. It would give us useful info. The final Polaroid in Chapter 3 can be found in Max's house.
Max, Moses, I must bid you adieu. Make good choices, or, don't.
What the? Looking for these?
Really, Max? Most designated drivers at least give you a ride.
No ride. You're staying here tonight.
But Mom!
Here we can see that Max, Safi and Moses are drinking in her house. Safi is then saying goodbye and searching for her keys, but Max stops her that she's staying at her place tonight. But I find the following part interesting.
Make good choices, or, don't.
Does Safi refer by this to her actions like slashing Gwen's tires or trashing Lucas's office? Or does she mean her cancelled book deal? Or is it just a typical alcohol wisdom? It could be nothing, but I just find it funny and interesting. Enough for Chapter 3, on to the Chapter 4. The first Polaroid in here can be found at Max's house, and it shows us another part of Max's private life.
God, that smells amazing. I haven't had pancakes in a million years.
Johnny cakes, actually. I used to skip school sometimes and make them with my grandma.
And they're made with real Johnny?
You are so annoying. No, they are not. And they go best with mulberry jam.
Oh no. I've only got grape.
Then I guess you'll have to make it up to me.
So, it seems like Amanda has spent the night at Max's house, probably after the Acid Pink concert. And this Polaroid seriously makes me think about whether all of these Polaroids appear around the time when the event in them happened. Because if Max was on the Acid Pink concert with Amanda, and then Amanda spent the night at Max's house, then it doesn't make sense that during that evening, Max would also drink in her house with Moses and Safi. The only way this would make sense to me is if this drinking happened during the other night than the Acid Pink concert. Or maybe all four of them drank together. Moses left home and Safi was sleeping on a couch. But on the previous Polaroid, we only see 3 bottles, and on the Johnny Cakes one, we cannot hear Safi say a single thing. So I highly doubt that. Well, that means we have a new topic for discussion. How is it with timing of the Polaroid's appearance and the events that happen in them? Let me know your opinion down in the comments, and let's continue with our analysis. The second Polaroid can be found in the snapping turtle.
Move over, quick!
Whoa, did you steal that thing?
I'm borrowing him.
Why?
He told me he wanted a selfie.
Here we can see Max, Safi and Moses having fun on Krampus. At least for now, we don't see any sign of danger. But that doesn't mean that there is nothing weird on this photo. As we all know, there was a roast during Krampus in the living world, and Lucas also had his presentation. But here, we don't see any sign of that. There is no projector, no project screen, and we cannot even see any other people. It's only Max, Safi and Moses. One would think that during this kind of party, there would be a lot of people, just like in the living world. Is the roast even happening in here? Or was this photo taken before the party started? That would explain why the projector is not ready yet, why there are no people, and why Safi was able to borrow the Krampus decoration from the tree. Amanda maybe didn't mind so much before the party started. The third Polaroid can be found outside of the snapping turtle.
Sunk! Drink up, baby!
How are you so good at this?
Where I grew up, there was nothing to do but drink and set shit on fire. You strip poker next?
You're a menace to society.
Here we can see that Reggie and Vin probably got together, just as we can see in the final scene of Chapter 5, if Max didn't kiss Vin. Or maybe they're just having fun for now, and they will be a couple later. Of course, if Reggie will still keep winning the beer pong game. And now to the final and also the most interesting Polaroid in this chapter. This one can be found on Kampus after Safi lost control of her powers.
You know, I thought we were good, finally. We weren't perfect, but what family ever is?
I was so stupid. You've never cared about anyone but yourself.
No, you don't. You only care what I do for you and your reputation and your legacy.
If you actually gave two shits about me, you would actually listen to me. Or God forbid, let me make my own mistakes.
I trusted you. You're my mother. I'm supposed to be able to trust you.
As we can see, even in the original timeline, Safi lost control of her powers. Now, there are a few things I would like to point out in this photo. So, first of them, the poses of Diamond, Reggie and Loretta. With their hands, they are all pointing at Max, the same way as if they were holding a gun. Also, they're all winking at Max for some reason. Another thing is the location where this photo was taken. I wasn't sure whether this photo was taken on the roof of the astronomy department or on campus, but after I explored both locations well, I'm almost 100% sure that this Polaroid was taken on the roof because of this railing and snow near it. If we compare it with the roof scene from chapter 1, we can clearly see that it's the same railing. That means that this Polaroid wasn't taken in the location where we found it, which is kinda weird. And the last thing that confuses me is the weather on this photo. So as we know, Safi already lost control, so there is a storm and a time vortex. But on this photo, for some reason, there is almost a clear sky. We can see only a few clouds and a bright moon. Could it be that this photo was taken right after Safi lost control and so the storm was still only starting to form? We don't know for sure how roasting Lucas went in the original timeline, or whether it actually happened there at all. We can only guess so by the information that Safi was yelling at Yasmin. And also, we don't know who went where after the roast. Maybe Max left earlier? But why was she with Diamond, Reggie and Loretta on the roof of the astronomy department? Did I mistake this location with another one? Again, you can let me know down in the comments, and I'm really curious about your opinions. Alright, so we are entering chapter 5, and that means the last 3 Polaroids. The first one can be found on the roof, where Moses is strapped with a lot of telescopes.
Don't mind me, Mr. Owl. Just gonna grab a quick photo and then scoot on by.
I said, who?
Who?
Yeah, who? As in, who do you think killed her?
As we can see, this Polaroid doesn't make much sense. We can see this owl for a few times during the game, but it never talked. The second Polaroid can be found in the Blackwell Academy bathroom.
Max and Safi? Not Max and Chloe? So, that's it then? We're done?
Safi's cooler than you ever were.
'Cause she drives a Porsche?
'Cause she has powers.
Again, this Polaroid doesn't make any sense at all. Maybe it shows us that Max misses Chloe a lot, and now, when she finally found her new home, she has some kind of an internal conflict in her, because Chloe can never be fully replaced in her life, but she still has 2 new people who she now calls her best friends. And the third and the final Polaroid in the entire game can be found in the snapping turtle, also during the time vortex.
Really, Max? A photo now? Why are you always in everybody's business? We were having a moment.
Maybe she has a voyeurism kink. Not like I'm one to kink shame. Just ignore her.
Where were we?
You were going to tell me more about your telescope.
Nah, I can't do it. A little privacy, please. I have to tell Vin about my telescope.
And for this Polaroid, I really have nothing much to say. Again, it doesn't make any sense with the story context. At least not to me. It seems that these Polaroids are just a weird product of a messed up reality caused by the time vortex and both Max and Safi entering it from the living world. If we leave out the Polaroids from chapter 5, we can figure out the ending of the original timeline. So, after Safi lost control, Max ran to the Overlook, Safi probably shot Yasmin here as well, and Max had to use the owl photo to come back. I have to stop here just to point out that it seems that this was the first time when Max saw Safi's powers. Nothing in the Polaroid suggests that Max knew about her powers before. So yeah, Max came back through the owl photo to December 4th, she ran to the Overlook, talked to Safi, Safi took the gun photo, and then Max shot Safi, causing the timelines to finally split. Since then, it's the story as we know it, with both the dead and the living worlds, and the combined world in the end. We can't tell for sure why Safi is acting so evil after coming here from the original timeline. The only things we have are the theories discussed in my previous video. So, if you want to know more about this topic, the link for it is down in the video description. There are still a few unanswered questions that I still cannot answer, at least not for now. For example, which future Max came back through the moon photo? Was it the Max from the original timeline? Now, I mean the Max on the Overlook after Safi lost control of her powers. Maybe she originally didn't have the owl photo, so she used the moon photo. Or what if the original timeline as we saw it on Polaroids was already altered somehow, and Max really came back multiple times? That might explain the dead world symbol in the conversation in the bowling alley, where Safi was still alive. Also, it might explain why a few of those Polaroids seem to have different timing or weird location. But that's only a theory, which probably won't be true. Who knows? And also, how did all those Polaroids get there? Did the time vortex throw them there? I don't really know, but again, it's a great topic for discussion, so make sure to post your opinion into the comments. The original timeline really seems to have happened a lot differently from the dead world and the living world, at least in some aspects. Whether it's Safi not using her powers so much, or Max not being absent for 2 days, and also finally having her private life with Amanda. There still could be a lot of information hidden in these Polaroids, which I could have easily missed. Or maybe some connections I couldn't figure out. What are your opinions? Do you agree, or do you think something else? Or do you have a completely different theory that could blow our minds and convince us that all of these Polaroids could mean something entirely different? Let me know down in the comments. I look forward to all of your opinions. If you liked this video, I would be really grateful if you could press that like button. Also, if you missed my previous video about why Safi's behavior is so different between the gun photo and the owl photo, you can go check it out. Also, if you missed my first video where I tried to explain some unanswered questions, why not give it a chance as well? Thanks again for watching and have a nice day.